The twin suns of Helios 7 cast harsh shadows across the crystalline spires of New Haven, where Queen Nyxus's palace rose like a jagged wound against the amber sky. Captain Marcus Vale pressed himself against the cool crystal wall, his breathing measured despite the suffocating heat. The stolen vial of luminarium pulsed with gentle blue light in his pocket, enough raw energy to power the human resistance for months, or in the wrong hands, enough to level half the settlement. 3 years of careful planning had led to this moment. 3 years since Queen Nyxus had ordered the massacre at Mining Colony 6, where 400 humans and sympathetic crystallines had died for daring to demand basic rights. The memory of their screams still haunted Marcus's dreams. Movement caught his eye, a patrol of crystalline guards, their translucent bodies refracting sunlight into deadly prisms. Marcus held his breath as they passed, their crystalline joints chiming softly against their armor. One wrong move, one errant reflection, and he'd join the countless others who disappeared into Queen Nyxus's infamous quicksand pits. "Captain, the eastern gate is clear," Rook's voice crackled through his subdermal calm. His second-in-command had never failed him, but even her steady voice carried an edge of tension today. "You have maybe 3 minutes before the shift change." Marcus touched the vial again, drawing comfort from its warmth. "Almost there. Tell Dex to have the skimmer ready." A high-pitched crystalline tone cut through the air, the alarm. Marcus's heart sank as the palace erupted into activity. "Intruder in the vault sector!" The words resonated through the crystal walls themselves, Queen Nyxus's voice turning the very architecture into a weapon against him. "Rook, abort mission. Get everyone out." Marcus broke into a run, no longer bothering with stealth. Behind him, he heard the musical sound of crystalline guards mobilizing, their weapons charging with that distinctive high-pitched whine. He made it 3 corridors before the first energy blast struck the wall beside his head, spraying superheated crystal shards across his protective gear. Marcus dove and rolled, coming up firing his own weapon, a modified mining laser that shot concentrated bursts of thermal energy. 2 guards shattered, their crystalline forms exploding into clouds of glittering dust. But more were coming, always more. "Fascinating," Queen Nyxus's voice echoed through the corridors, somehow both beautiful and terrible. "Did you truly believe you could steal from me in my own palace, human, that your primitive technology could bypass my defenses?" Marcus reached a junction and hesitated. Left led to the emergency exit he'd planned to use. Right led deeper into the palace's maintenance sectors. Both would be heavily guarded now. As he stood there, crystal barriers began growing from the walls, slowly sealing off his escape routes. "Your kind never learns," Nyxus continued, her voice closer now. "You came to our world uninvited, thinking to exploit our resources. When we offered partnership, you demanded ownership. When we offered guidance, you chose violence." "Tell that to the families at Colony 6, Marcus shouted back, making his choice and sprinting right. "Tell that to the children who suffocated when you cut off their air supply." He rounded a corner and found himself face to face with Queen Nyxus herself. She towered over him, her crystalline form pulsing with internal light, faceted eyes regarding him with cold calculation. A dozen royal guards flanked her, weapons trained on Marcus. "Ah yes, Colony 6, Nyxus's voice held no emotion. "A regrettable necessity, though not as regrettable as what comes next." Marcus raised his weapon, knowing it was futile. "Just kill me and get it over with." "Kill you?" Nyxus laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Oh no, Captain Vale, you've caused me far too much trouble for such a quick end. I want your fellow rebels to watch as you suffer. I want them to lose hope as you sink slowly into the quicksand pits, knowing that their great hero died screaming and alone." The floor beneath Marcus suddenly transformed, becoming liquid crystal that grabbed at his boots. He fired at Nyxus, but her guards moved with impossible speed, deflecting the blast. The last thing he saw before the guards overwhelmed him was her satisfied smile, sharp and cruel as a broken mirror. Hours later, Marcus stood at the edge of the infamous quicksand pit, hands bound behind his back. A crowd had gathered, both humans and crystallines forced to watch his execution. The twin suns were setting, painting the desert in blood-red hues. Any final words, Captain Vale? Nyxus asked, her voice carrying across the assembled crowd. Marcus smiled, feeling the hidden lock pick he'd palmed during his capture finally click into place. Just that you should have killed me when you had the chance. The guards shoved him forward, and Marcus fell into the waiting quicksand. But as the crowd's roar faded above him, his bound hands came free. In the darkness beneath the surface, his fingers found what he'd been hopping for, the edge of an ancient maintenance shaft, one of many that honeycombed the ground beneath the settlement. As he pulled himself into the tunnel, lungs burning, Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. The real war was just beginning, and this time the resistance would strike from below, from the very foundations of Nyxus's crystalline kingdom. He had a long climb ahead of him, but somewhere in the darkness, hope waited. And with the stolen luminarium still secure in his hidden chest pocket, he had just given the resistance the power they needed to turn the tide. The maintenance tunnels beneath New Haven were a maze of darkness and echoes, each step sending crystalline whispers bouncing off ancient walls. Marcus had been crawling through these passages for what felt like hours, his body aching from the execution attempt and subsequent escape. The stolen luminarium vial cast a faint blue glow, just enough to navigate by without attracting attention. A sudden scuffing sound ahead made him freeze. In the darkness, something moved, something that walked with the distinctive musical chime of crystalline physiology. Marcus reached for his backup laser, only to find empty air where his holster should have been. "I wouldn't," a melodious voice called out. "Even if you had a weapon, the resonance of a laser blast down here would bring the entire tunnel network down on both our heads." A figure stepped into the blue glow of the luminarium. She was crystalline, but unlike any Marcus had seen before. Where most of her kind were transparent or translucent, her crystalline form was shot through with veins of deep purple and midnight blue. Fracture lines crossed her surface like a network of scars, telling stories of battles and survival. "I am Zira," she said, keeping her distance. "Once chief scientist of the Luminarium Research Institute, now," she gestured at her scarred form. "Let's say I'm another victim of Nyxus's paranoia." Marcus studied her carefully. The institute was destroyed 2 years ago. Nyxus claimed it was a human terrorist attack. "Nyxus claims many things." Zira's laugh was bitter, sending musical notes bouncing off the tunnel walls. "The institute was destroyed because we discovered the truth about Luminarium, about what it really is, about what it's doing to our world." Before Marcus could respond, distant shouts echoed through the tunnels. The search parties were getting closer. Zira gestured urgently down a side passage. "Come, my sanctuary is not far and you look like you could use medical attention." Marcus hesitated only a moment before following. The enemy of his enemy wasn't necessarily a friend, but right now his options were limited. They moved swiftly through the tunnels, Zira leading them through turns and junctions with the confidence of long familiarity. Her sanctuary turned out to be an abandoned research station, carved into a natural crystal cavern. Outdated equipment lined the walls, repurposed to provide light and basic amenities. Most striking was a massive holographic display showing a complex network of tunnels, the underground mapping system that had been lost when the institute fell. "Sit," Zira commanded, gesturing to a makeshift chair. "That shoulder needs attention." She began gathering supplies from various containers, her movements precise and efficient. "Why help me?" Marcus asked, wincing as she began treating his injuries. "I'm the enemy, aren't I? The savage human who came to steal your world's resources." Zira's crystalline hands paused in their work. "Do you know what Luminarium really is, Captain Vale? Not the propaganda Nyxus spreads, but its true nature." Marcus touched the vial in his pocket. "It's an energy source, the most powerful one we've ever encountered." "It's alive." Zira's words hung in the air between them. "Luminarium is a living crystal, part of a vast network that spans this entire planet. The deposits we mine aren't resources, they're organs, pieces of a planetary consciousness that we're slowly killing." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. The earthquakes, the increasing instability of the mining zones. "The planet is dying," Zira confirmed grimly. And in its death throes, it will take both our species with it, unless we stop the mining, unless we stop Nyxis. A distant rumble shook dust from the ceiling, as if emphasizing her point. Marcus stood, ignoring the pain of his injuries. The Resistance has been fighting Nyxis for years, but we've never had enough support, enough resources. You have resources now, Zira interrupted, gesturing at the holographic map. These tunnels connect every major settlement, every mining operation, even Nyxis's palace itself. And you have me, someone who knows how to use Luminarium without destroying it. Marcus studied the map with new eyes, seeing not just escape routes but strategic possibilities. There are others like you, crystallines who oppose Nyxis. More than you'd think. Many of my people remember the old ways before Nyxis convinced them that exploitation was the only path to progress. They're scattered, hiding, but— She turned to face him fully. With the right leader, the right cause. Another explosion rocked the tunnels, closer this time. Through the crystalline walls, they could hear the musical sounds of search parties communicating. Marcus made his decision. "Show me everything," he said. "The tunnels, the luminarium, all of it. If we're going to build a real rebellion, humans and crystallines together, we need to understand what we're really fighting for." Zira's face split in a crystalline smile that refracted the blue light of the luminarium. The crystal cavern tavern hummed with tension as Marcus and Zira made their way through the crowded space. Once a simple miner's bar, it had become an unlikely meeting ground for dissidents of both species. Crystallines with battle scars and humans with mining burns sat together, united by their hatred of Nyxis's regime. Rook emerged from the shadows, her dark eyes widening at the sight of Marcus. "Captain, when you fell into the quicksand—" She embraced him fiercely before turning a suspicious gaze on Zira. "And who's this?" "Our new advantage," Marcus replied, leading them to a private booth in the back. He placed the stolen vial of luminarium on the table, its blue glow casting strange shadows across their faces. "Zira's going to help us understand what we're really fighting for." Over the next hour, Zira explained the true nature of luminarium to Rook and the other resistance leaders who quietly joined them. The living crystal, the planetary consciousness, the devastating consequences of continued mining. With each revelation, the mood around the table grew darker. "So we're not just fighting for our freedom," Dex, their weapons specialist, mused. "We're fighting for the survival of an entire world." A tremor shook the tavern, stronger than the usual mining vibrations. Glasses rattled on tables and conversations momentarily hushed. "The planet's deterioration is accelerating," Zira said grimly. "We don't have much time." "Then we need to move fast," Marcus decided. "Zira, how quickly can you teach others to communicate with the luminarium safely?" Before she could answer, the tavern's door burst open. A young human miner stumbled in, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. "Royal Guards, they're conducting raids across the lower district. They're looking for you, Captain." Marcus was already moving, but Zira caught his arm. "Wait! The tunnels beneath the tavern, they connect to an old emergency shelter. We can gather intelligence from there." They hurried the assembled rebels through a hidden entrance, just as the first crystalline harmonics of Royal Guard communications echoed from the street. Through crystal-lined passages, they emerged into a vast chamber that must have once served as a civil defense bunker. "This is perfect," Rook breathed, already assessing the tactical advantages of the space. "We can establish a proper base of operations here." Over the next few hours, as more rebels filtered in through various tunnel connections, the shelter transformed into a command center. Zira's holographic maps were supplemented with intelligence from their network of spies. A clear picture began to emerge. Nyxis was squeezing the settlements harder than ever, desperate to maintain control. "Look at these new mining quotas," Dex said, displaying data stolen from the palace. "She's pushing for triple the usual extraction. If what Zira says is true, this could kill the planet within months." "It's worse than that," Zira interjected, her crystalline form pulsing with agitation. "The increased mining is creating unstable resonances in the luminarium network. The latest tremors aren't just the planet's pain, they're warning signs of a catastrophic collapse." Marcus studied the maps, nodding the web of tunnels that connected every critical location in New Haven. A plan began forming in his mind. What if we could use those resonances? Turn Nyxus's greed against her. Zira's eyes widened as she followed his thinking. The palace! It's built on a major luminarium node. If we could establish the right harmonic frequency, we could bring down her seat of power without destroying the surrounding settlement, Marcus finished. But we'd need access to the palace's foundation crystals. I can help with that, a new voice called from the tunnel entrance. Everyone turned to see a tall crystalline in royal guard armor. For a tense moment, weapons were raised, until the guard's form shifted, outer layers of crystal falling away to reveal a scarred core similar to Zira's. This is Vex, Zira explained quickly. My former research partner, now working as a spy in Nyxus's inner circle. Vex approached the central table, movements careful in the face of still suspicious rebels. The Queen is planning something big. She's called in every available mining crew, even shutting down outlying operations to concentrate on the central extraction zone. Whatever she's looking for, she's close to finding it. Or creating it, Zira said softly. The resonance patterns. Nyxus isn't just mining luminarium anymore. She's trying to reshape it, to bend the planetary consciousness to her will. The implications hung heavy in the air. If Nyxus succeeded in dominating the luminarium network, she would have control not just of their power supply, but of the planet itself. Marcus looked around the room at the assembled rebels, humans and crystallines united by a cause greater than themselves. Then we don't have a choice. We move now before she can complete whatever she's planning. Vex, can you get us into the palace? The spy's crystalline face split in a sharp smile. Better than that, Captain. I can get you into the Queen's private mining operation, the one she's been keeping secret even from her own guards. Another tremor shook the chamber, stronger than before. In the blue light of the luminarium, Marcus met Zira's eyes. They both knew the next few hours would determine not just the fate of their rebellion, but the survival of their entire world. Deep beneath the palace, Marcus, Zira, and a small strike team moved through tunnels that pulsed with an unsettling red glow. Unlike the familiar blue radiance of normal luminarium, this light seemed angry, distorted. The crystal walls themselves felt wrong, their usual harmonious resonance replaced by discordant frequencies that set everyone's teeth on edge. By the first crystal, Zira whispered, running her hand along a wall. She's torturing it, forcing the luminarium to change its fundamental structure. Vex, leading them through the secret passages, nodded grimly. Nyxus calls it perfecting the crystal. She believes she can force it to evolve to become something more powerful. More controllable, you mean? Rook muttered, checking her modified crystal rifle for the 100th time. The weapon had been specially tuned by Zira to disrupt crystalline structures without causing permanent damage to living crystal entities. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber that drew gasps from even the most hardened rebels. Massive crystal columns stretched from floor to ceiling, but instead of their natural geometric patterns, these had been twisted into nightmarish spirals. At the center stood a towering machine, its architecture a perversion of both human and crystalline technology. The resonance engine, Vex explained. Nyxus's masterpiece. It sends specific frequencies through the luminarium network, trying to reshape the entire planetary consciousness to match her will. Marcus studied the machine with growing horror. Energy arced between its components, each pulse sending visible waves of distortion through the surrounding crystals. How long until it's fully operational? Hours at most, Vex replied. Once it reaches full power, it will send a cascade of forced evolution through every luminarium vein on the planet. Everything will change. Or die trying, Zira added, her voice hard. She approached one of the twisted columns, placing her hand against it. The pain, it's screaming. As if in response to her words, another tremor shook the chamber, stronger than any before. Cracks appeared in several columns, and the machine's energy fluctuated wildly. The planet's fighting back, Marcus realized. That's what these earthquakes really are. It's trying to reject Nyxus's changes. How observant, The voice rang through the chamber like breaking glass. Queen Nyxis stepped from behind the resonance engine, her crystalline form now shot through with veins of the same angry red light that filled the chamber. Though I would call it resistance to improvement. Royal guards materialized from hidden alcoves, weapons charged. The rebels formed a defensive circle, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. I must admit, Captain Vale, you've exceeded my expectations, Nyxis continued, moving closer. Not only surviving the quicksand, but uniting with our own outcasts. She cast a disdainful glance at Zira and Vex. Tell me, Zira, did you share your precious theories about Luminarium being alive? About how we should remain primitive, talking to crystals instead of mastering them? You've seen the evidence, Zira shot back. The tremors, the instability, you're killing our world. I am saving it. Nyxis's composed facade cracked slightly, red light pulsing through her form. When the resonance engine completes its work, Luminarium will finally achieve its true potential. Our people will evolve beyond these limited forms. We will become gods. Another earthquake rocked the chamber, more violent than ever. Several guards lost their footing, and hairline fractures spread through the twisted columns. You feel that? Marcus challenged, stepping forward. The planet isn't evolving, it's dying, and it's taking us all with it. Temporary growing pains, Nyxis dismissed. Once the process is complete. My queen, a guard burst into the chamber. The outer settlements, the crystal formations are collapsing. The tremors are causing chain reactions through the entire network. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Nyxis's face. She turned to the resonance engine's control panel, fingers flying over crystalline interfaces. Impossible. The calculations were perfect. The harmonics. Cannot override the will of a living being, Zira interrupted. Not without destroying it. The chamber shuddered again, and this time the cracks in the columns began to glow with intense blue light, the natural color of Luminarium fighting back against Nyxis's corrupted red. Marcus met Zira's eyes, seeing his own realization mirrored there. The planet wasn't just fighting back, it was offering them a weapon. But using it would require perfect timing and likely a sacrifice none of them were prepared for. As if reading his thoughts, Zira gave him a slight nod. Then she turned to Nyxis, her voice carrying the harmonic resonance of pure Luminarium. You wanted to speak to crystals, my queen? Well, now they're going to speak to you. She pressed her hands against the nearest column and began to sing. Zira's song filled the chamber, a crystalline melody that seemed to draw power from the very planet itself. The natural blue light of the Luminarium pulsed in rhythm with her voice, fighting against Nyxis's corrupted red energy. The twisted columns began to resonate, their forced structures vibrating with increasing intensity. Stop her, Nyxis commanded, but her guards hesitated, transfixed by the song that spoke to something deep within their crystalline nature. Even their weapons dimmed, the corrupted energy within them fluctuating uncertainly. Marcus understood now. Every crystalline, even Nyxis herself, was connected to the planet's consciousness through their own crystalline structures. Zira wasn't just singing. She was awakening that connection, forcing them to feel what they had been doing to their world. The frequency, Nyxis rushed to the resonance engine, frantically adjusting controls. I can override this primitive. Now, Marcus shouted. The rebels moved as one, their modified weapons firing in perfect harmony with Zira's song. The blast struck the resonance engine's key points, disrupting its artificial frequencies. Sparks of red and blue energy crackled through the air as the machine's carefully calibrated harmonics collapsed. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some royal guards turned their weapons on the rebels, while others clutched their crystalline heads, overwhelmed by the competing resonances. Through it all, Zira's song continued, growing stronger as more crystallines added their voices to hers. You fools, Nyxis screamed, her form flickering between red and blue as she fought against the planet's awakening consciousness. I offered us godhood, and you choose to remain bound to dirt and stone. The queen raised her hands, drawing corrupted energy directly from the failing resonance engine. The red light within her grew blindingly intense, and the chamber's temperature skyrocketed as she channeled power never meant to be contained within a single being. "If I cannot evolve this world," she declared, her voice distorting with power, "then I will end it. Better destruction than submission to lesser beings." Marcus saw the danger too late. Nyxis wasn't just drawing power. She was creating a feedback loop through the entire Luminarium network. If she succeeded, the resulting explosion would shatter the planet's crystal core. "Zira," he called out, but she was lost in the song, her entire being resonating with the planet's pain and anger. Rook and the other rebels fired at Nyxis, but their weapons couldn't penetrate the shield of red energy surrounding her. Then Vex stepped forward, his crystalline form pulsing with natural blue light. "My queen," he said, his voice carrying both sorrow and determination. "You taught us that evolution requires sacrifice." Before anyone could stop him, Vex threw himself into Nyxis's energy field. His crystalline body, still pure and connected to the planet's consciousness, acted like a conductor. The corrupted power coursed through him and into the chamber floor, seeking the path of least resistance back to the planet's natural luminarium network. Nyxis screamed as her power was grounded, the red light in her form flickering and fading. The resonance engine shuddered, its unnatural harmonics disrupted beyond recovery. Throughout the chamber, the twisted columns began to crack, their forced structures falling away to reveal natural crystal formations beneath. "What have you done?" Nyxis staggered, her once magnificent form now riddled with fractures. "The power, my evolution, was never yours to take." Zira's voice rang out as her song ended. She stood straight despite her exhaustion, supported by the rebels around her. "The planet does not belong to us, we belong to it." As if in response, a final tremor shook the chamber. But this one was different, not violent, but purposeful. The natural blue light of Luminarium surged through the cracks in the floor, surrounding Nyxis in a crystalline cage. "Captain Vale," the Queen said, her voice barely a whisper now. "You understand power, tell them. Tell them I only wanted to control something greater than yourself," Marcus finished. He approached the crystalline cage, seeing not the terrible queen she had become, but the fear that had driven her there. "That's always the mistake tyrants make." The cage began to sink into the floor, drawing Nyxis down into the planet's depths. Her final cry was cut off as the crystal sealed above her, leaving only smooth blue stone behind. In the days that followed, the planet's healing began. The natural luminarium network, freed from Nyxis's corruption, started repairing itself. The violent tremors ceased, replaced by gentle pulses of energy that helped stabilize damaged regions. Marcus stood with Zira on a balcony of the former palace, watching the twin suns set over New Haven. Below them, humans and crystallines worked together to dismantle the last of Nyxis's mining operations, replacing them with sustainable energy collection points designed to work in harmony with the planet's natural processes. "We'll need leadership," Zira said, her crystalline form glowing softly in the fading light. "Both human and crystalline working together to build something new." Marcus smiled, touching the small shard of pure luminarium he now wore, a gift from the planet itself, symbolizing the bridge between their peoples. "Together," he agreed. "That's how we evolved after all." Above them, the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere deep below, they said, Nyxis still existed, neither dead nor truly alive, becoming one with the crystal consciousness she had sought to dominate. And throughout the planet, in mines and settlements and hidden caves, the song of Luminarium played on, no longer a cry of pain, but a harmony of hope.